Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another BlastCast. I am Jarvis. With me, as always, is a miracle lightning dragon. He's just a man. I don't know. Oh, I won't sing that. I won't sing that. Okay. Anyway,
He's
guys.
the best around.
No, that's something different. That's something different. All right, let's go ahead and get into it here. Of course, the PTU still has 240 bugs left to go until 3.0 can go to live. That number can vary, can go up or down. They said that they're getting rid of about, I think they said something like a dozen a day or whatnot, so we'll see. But I still don't think they're going to get it out before Christmas. But
1 million bugs every day.
yeah, I don't know. They still might try to do it just for their employees can have a holiday rest, but I don't know. We'll see what happens.
No, I mean, the guys need a break. I mean, the game is going to be there after the holiday season is over, so...
But I'd rather them, like, not release a product that has a lot of bugs that they have to stay and kind of do server maintenance on the Christmas. I'd rather them go home, take that time, unwind, relax, come back after New Year's, and attack it with new vigor. Because to me, that would be a much better thing for everybody, as opposed to what happens when you release a patch, which is always just, you know, like walking in a landmine field. It's just something's gonna blow up, and it's probably gonna be you. So I'd rather them just have that time off. It's not that big of a deal. I'd rather them just, you know,
better to have something that's working later than broken now.
Yeah, basically. All right, well, this week was kind of an unexpected show. It had something to do with the whole maglev around the verse, and they covered something that I don't think most people expected and or wanted, or even we just didn't care for it. Now, when the Dragonfly was first released, there was a Q&A session, and here's the question, and I'll read you the question and the answer, and I kind of want you to take note of this. Question: will the Dragonfly be able to fly in a planetary atmosphere to some degree, even though it can't transition to space, or will it be landlocked to its ground mode while on a planet? Here's the answer. The Dragonfly would not be capable of atmospheric flight when on a planet's surface. It would just be operating on its ground mode. Now, this isn't that long ago. We didn't expect these things to fly, and frankly, I don't want them to. Everything being able to do everything starts to get a little... You start to weaken the characteristics of a game. You start to thin it all out, so there's no real discernible difference between one thing and another. They even talked about in here how that when an object is struck, that it goes into an anti-spin mode to automatically recover. And basically, as far as large objects are concerned, short of having like a large building in front of you, it will go ahead and scan out what's ahead of you and automatically like get you up and over it. To me, automating a lot of these processes, while it does sound, you know, it sounds nice on the surface, it's kind of like, once again, going back on talking about the difference between, like, you know, Forza and Rad Racer, is that when you automate something too much, you really separate yourself out from the process.
You're no longer driving the vehicle, anymore the vehicle is driving you. You
might as well just have an overhead view and tell your Zerglings to go over here, because they're going to go ahead and go around all the obstacles. It doesn't really matter.
Star Citizen RTS. That sounds fun.
Why not?
Make it done a lot sooner, too.
Of course, the response to having these flying bikes has been pretty vocal. I was actually tempted to do a form fireplace on it, but decided to go ahead and just kind of wait to talk about it here. A lot of people are not happy with this. There's a lot of reasons for that, and it's not just because, oh, you know, we're upset there's an extra mode because we're big, you know, we're fuddy-duddies or whatever. There's a term that marks my age. Huh? I'm a fuddy-duddy. See, bikes right now currently, even though it will be patched out, they can even fly from ground to space. Now, they said that's going to be corrected eventually, but right now, it sounds like their correction is just going to be like, if you cross a certain boundary, it's going to arbitrarily explode from re-entry heat. Here's the thing. Re-entry doesn't necessarily mean heat. That depends on the surface size, making contact with the air, the speed that you come in, all that's factors. So if you have this motorcycle,
atmosphere density has a huge factor in this
exactly.
as well. If it's a moon that literally has no atmosphere, there's nothing for you to hit and explode.
Right. So it's one of those things that it seems like an arbitrary restriction, and if vehicles are able to go greater, say like they're able to put out like 1.5 Gs or just more than what's needed, and they're using thrusters that are made for space already, so oxygen or atmospheric burning that particular source for fuel is not a factor.
Not to mention the fact that if it's an all-purpose ground vehicle and you go to a place that, say, doesn't have an atmosphere that's made of oxygen, atmospheric engines based off of oxygen intake don't work. So, like, if you go to Venus, for example, your jet engines won't work there because, hey, there's no oxygen in the atmosphere.
Yeah, at least not enough concentration.
I don't think there's any oxygen. It may be like 1%.
That's what I'm talking about. Trace particles. Much. Yeah, trace particles, but nothing.
There's no way a jet would fly there. Exactly.
So, just kind of setting up this, and I'm going to run some footage here from Kerbal. Lightning was kind enough to do this for me. He was even able to use Kerbal to actually come in relatively smoothly without really even generating much heat. It just depends on how you do it. And right now, like you can, when you enter the atmosphere of certain quote-unquote atmosphere of some orbital bodies, you get re-entry effects. It doesn't seem to be tied to speed. Doesn't really seem to generate heat. It just seems to be like an effect, like no more than
within atmosphere play effect.
Yeah, essentially speaking. Now, yes, I know it's an alpha, and I expect that there's gonna be, like as usual, a bunch of people down below telling me that it's an alpha. I need some more of that. So we'll move on. You're duly noted that it's an alpha. I do hope that they go ahead and start implementing heat mechanics, because one of the things about that is that, say someone was chasing you, and you need to get away, so you dive into the planet, and you got a rear turret blazing back at them to go ahead and damage your shields or even their hull. Diving into an atmosphere with a damaged hull or shields can be pretty dangerous, so you may actually force them to back off, and if you dive in too fast, of course, you'll explode, and so it's one of those things where you can kind of run the edge, but just it can't be arbitrary. Not like the ways like this. To me, it's too arcadey. It's too simple.
Even anime treats re-entry effects with more respect than Star Citizen is.
Yeah, when your video game's being outdone by anime, you've got problems. Now, basically what they said is that you can still, of course, load your bike onto another ship. The ship can go through the arbitrary invisible barrier, and now you can go ahead and then drop the vehicle out of the ship in the high atmosphere, and it will fly down. So,
which is totally backwards, by the way.
So it's good stuff. I'm just so why? That's my basic thing is why. It doesn't seem consistent. Now, if you can fly, who's going to use these at ground level? Why would you? Why would you take a chance of hitting rocks or any obstacles or possibly even an ambush? Because you can just fly up and over it. Think of all the metagaming and mission types that basically go out the window because you can circumvent everything by going over it.
You can even go one step further than that. Why even use bikes at all when you have a ship that has better armor and shields that does the exact same thing?
Yeah. See, I thought that the idea of the ground vehicles was to be able to go and travel in places where air vehicles couldn't go effectively. Like, say, give me an example of kind of gameplay that you might be missing out on. You're supposed to go ahead and attack a pirate base. It's got air defenses, so you go ahead and land your ship out from a distance. You go ahead and take your ground vehicles out, your bikes or whatever out, and you want to go ahead and stay low. You want to stay, you want the ground vehicles so you don't get detected by the anti-aircraft and the radar system. So you go in low, and you go through the canyons or whatnot. You arrive at a fairly safe distance, but you don't want to get much closer because you don't want the base of sentries to pick you up. So you disembark, and then you walk the rest of the way. This is like a mission breaking up into stages, okay? And so it's like you take some of that away, or there's an ambush possibly in this canyon. Well, you just go up and over the canyon, and what's the point? I don't know. To me, it's like when you build something like these vehicles, they're pieces of a whole. They're pieces of I almost think like when I said that, like the Russian dolls. You know how you get the doll on the doll.
The nesting dolls.
Yeah, nesting dolls. That's kind of how I viewed it. You know, it's like, you know, you're moving in those stages down to eventually your goal, and then you recollapse it back up into your ship and you fly off, kind of thing. Russian doll, spaceship, collapsing dolls, whatever. Nesting dolls, you said?
Nesting dolls.
Oh, there you go. I learned something new today. My day is complete.
You know, it's funny too, because I know that term, but I just heard it recently watching an anime.
Oh, there you go.
When I actually haven't watched anime in a long time, so it's just kind of funny that we're talking about it.
Yeah. Now, as far as the flying goes, I mean, if they're going to keep this, the fuel has to be extremely limited for this. But then again, if it's extremely limited for this, then once again, since these vehicles are supposed to fly in space, that would be limited there too. It just opens up a big mess to try to balance out.
Big old can of worms.
Yeah, see, when it was maglev before, it was a different system than your engines and your thrusters. It was just your thrusters maneuvered you around a little, but it was the maglev that took care of it. And this completely just throws everything out of whack. I don't know. You guys may like it. I don't. I see this as, why bother? There's just a lot with it of gameplay that kind of just gets superseded by, you know, that's like when I was a kid. I used to, like, my brother and I, you know, everyone when you're a kid, you pretend you got guns and you're shooting each other and whatnot. My brother and I used to do a really annoying thing to each other, where basically their pursuit is boom, they go shields, no damage. Okay. You know, what does it have to do with anything like a gunfight? You know, we make up an arbitrary rule: shields, no damage. It's because it was annoying and obnoxious to the other person, and it just kind of came out of the blue. This is kind of what this feels like. Aha! I set up this elaborate trap. Once these guys come down this canyon to our base, we will they fly right over the top of you. Shields, no damage. You know, it's just like all that defense, all the thing. It was like Stellaria.
Stellaris?
I keep doing that. I get too many games. Stellaris. How basically they limited their hyperspace travel recently because they saw that everyone could circumvent all the defenses. They said, you know what, we need to make sure that for this particular circumstance, the way that this game plays, that we only have the hyperspace lanes as opposed to having the three types.
We definitely need to do a video about that when the quote-unquote 2.0 comes out.
True. And I know you're working on your mod today for that, right?
Yeah, I basically the 1.8 they changed how the species traits work. Yeah. So I had to go in there and like change everything all over again to make them work. Yeah. Which is like annoying. The 2.0 thing is, I could literally sit here and talk about it for half an hour to an hour about what they're proposing to change and what might work and what won't work. And I mean, a lot of the stuff you can go back with Star Citizen. Now Stellaris is obviously a finished game and it's being updated, so it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
But if you make a system that you're trying to say, I don't like when players do this, so I'm going to add this system that will change this. Well, there's twofold on this. There's personal preference, which shouldn't matter if you're making a game with lots of people in mind. I mean, there's a certain degree of, okay, well, you know, you made the game to play like this, and it's your game. But it's my opinion of, once you release that game to the population, it's not really yours anymore. And you should try and support the game in the way that it's kind of been released as. So if you change too much too quickly, it doesn't reflect good. There's a phrase for you. It doesn't reflect good. That's etiquette from Lightning Dragon, by the way. Failed English.
Doesn't reflect well, sir.
Whatever. I know English good. But I mean, you can look at it as like, these things will be better overall, where maybe one or two things are like, these might not work, but the benefit to upgrading that, where if you're making everything overall better with one or two things that maybe need more tweaking, once you get that in the hands of other people And if you take their criticism and their advice and their suggestions and you make those things better, you'll probably end up with a better game. But if you just cover your ears and scream la 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 la, nothing's going to change, and it's just going to get worse and worse all the time. You know, the steel's getting worse all the time. And that's kind of what CIG feels like they're doing right now. They're just covering their ears and they're screaming la 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 because they're making the game they think is going to be fun, but they're not playing the game that they think is going to be fun.
Yeah, I mean, even when you watch them fly and all their videos that they do, I never see them flying the way that players fly. They always they use their vehicles very much the way that you would imagine a Star Wars-esque kind of space sim to be flying. But I mean, you have to actually intentionally limit yourself to do that. There's it's just it's a weird disconnect. It really is. I don't understand. Watching them play is always just kind of like a head scratcher to me. But yeah, it to me it feels like this is just another. You know what would be neat if, and they just go ahead and throw it. And that's kind of like so you're making a stew, and you say, what would be neat if I throw some cat food in here. That'd be neat.
What's the thing? The stone soup?
Yeah.
It smells really good. Oh, what's in there? Oh, not much. It'd be really good with some potatoes. Oh, I've got some potatoes. And they throw them in there, and eventually you have, a soup. But in this case, it's kind of like, oh, what's this? Oh, it's stone soup. Well, I got some rotting vegetables and some dead rats. Those could be good in there. And they're just throwing them all in there. So you have this rotten, putrid, vile stew that no one wants and no one is going to eat.
That reminds me of high school. It really does.
We're kind of ranting here and going off topic, which
a little bit.
I think some people actually enjoy when we do that. But
yeah, well, I mean, you guys get the general idea, though. I mean, you have to have restrictions. A game is defined not only by what you can do, but what you can't do. And if you don't set these boundaries, if you don't define these things very clearly, you end up with a very boring game. As I've made the analogy before, if you have a game of chess and every piece can move any way it wants to, what's the point? The idea of ground vehicles was that, even as that question and answer, which I read, was that they were for ground. The end. They just were different. Wheeled vehicles work differently than the maglev vehicles. The maglevs were smaller. They were like 1 or 2 people. They were fast. They didn't carry much, if any, cargo at all.
So what this tells me is space tanks confirmed.
Yes.
And not only will they be able to drive on the ground,
they can
they'll
fly.
Be able to fly in atmosphere as well as space, both re-entry and entry effects, and also they'll be able to one-shot every ship in the game because then they can do everything, and that's more fun.
Well, why don't you just go for mechs then? I mean, come on. I mean,
no.
Just you want like a just this normal tank that flies.
Yeah, just a regular tank, like a T-34.
Sure.
Just a space tank.
We'll get you a bolo. Oh my goodness. So the final part here was kind of egregious here, and I'm going to go ahead and play the clip. It's 41 minutes and 7 seconds into Around the Verse. Where they have Pritchett is actually making a statement here, and I'll play it. And yeah,
enjoy.
Atmospheric drag and these things actually come into play with Gravlev vehicles as well. It's not just spaceships. So the higher up you go, the more drag comes into play. So the idea is that when you're in a Gravlev mode and you're really hugged up tight to the ground and your Gravlevs are working, it's sort of in I call it terraplaning, but it's like a drafting mode almost. It's like decreased drag, so you can slide very, very easily when you're close to the ground. And so, especially when you start looking at afterburner speeds, you're not going to be able to reach those speeds when you're at higher elevations because the drag is keeping you back, holding you back, and you're reaching terminal velocity. So you really only reach those speeds when you're on a nice flat, and you're not bouncing up into the air. Decreased drag.
All right, the higher you go, the more drag comes into play. And of course, he talks about when you're on the ground, you're kind of in a drafting mode that has a decreased drag. Now, I'm not a physicist, but I'm pretty sure that when the air is denser closer to the ground, and that you would have
something about gravity.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, to me it seems like there's more air closer to the planet than away from it. In fact, that as you go up, you get what's called, I think, was it called thinner atmosphere? Do you think people breathe easier on Mount Everest, or do they breathe harder? I mean, is it easier or harder to breathe on Mount Everest top? Which one?
I'm pretty sure it's easier because the higher you go,
the more oxygen.
There's less gravity pushing on you, so you can breathe easier.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think about that. So yeah, I mean, I cannot believe that statement. I mean, I'm not the only one too. A lot of people in the forums were like, "What? This is the exact reverse opposite of reality."
I mean, the only thing that makes sense is if he was talking about engines, because yes, when there's less drags, the engines have less work to do, but you would go faster.
Yeah, but he said it's faster in the ground because there's less drag.
But it's so backwards.
I know.
And this is from an edited show. Like, we edit, so if we say something stupid, we go, "Oh no, that's not what I meant," and we go back and we fix it and we say the correct
or I
thing.
start stuttering or something.
Yeah, I mean, this is an edited show by quote unquote professionals, and
right.
Excuse me, what the heck are they talking about here? It doesn't make any sense.
Oh, I thought you said professionals, so they're talking about us.
No, I mean,
okay.
Of course, we're not professionals.
No,
but I mean, you'd expect the CIG guys to be professionals. I mean, they are technically being paid to do these things.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, I hate to say it, but that was a kick in my head to the idea, like, it's like, so the guy who programs the physics for the game thinks that there's less drag in a denser atmosphere, so the fastest vehicle in the game may actually be a submarine.
Yeah, because it's driving to the ground.
A driller. It's right. A driller. You're absolutely right. A vehicle that drills through a planet should be the fastest.
Yeah, because there's no atmosphere in the ground.
Right, and it's really dense, so there's less friction.
It's crazy dense.
So there's less drag. Oh gosh, I just like I had to play that. Like, the guy's like, "Did I hear that right?" And I went on the forum boards. But some people were pointing out too. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I heard that right." I'm sorry, folks. Sometimes the things you hear, things that they say, are just so maddening, and you're just like, you have to laugh. I feel like it was you seen Breaking Bad with Walter White trying to sneeze that money. He's underneath the house. He just starts laughing. He's like maniacally because everyone's coming to kill him, but he can't escape. He just loses it. He just starts laughing for like no reason whatsoever. That's kind of the way I feel sometimes when I hear things like this. Like, I'm beyond facepalm. I'm just like, wow. My palms don't even know what to do.
You don't have any palms anymore. You face palmed so hard, your hands exploded.
I have wrists.
Just like if you had taken a spaceship and went up slightly at a very slow speed and touched the atmosphere, they explode.
I crossed the boundary. That's right.
Crossed the boundary.
I honestly, I hate having to do shows like this.
It's the end of the show. They're not listening anymore. We can say whatever we want, and
that's true.
No one's gonna know.
That's true.
I mean, we want the game to be good.
Yeah.
But you have to be critical on these things, because otherwise, if you just go, "Oh, it's just alpha. Oh, it's just beta. Oh, day one patch. Oh, it'll be fixing the DLC. Oh, don't worry, it'll be better in Star Citizen 2." You're just gonna have a crap game.
Yeah.
Do you guys want to wait another 10 to 20 years to get the right game that we all pledged for? Back in 2015 or 2012 or whatever it was.
It's inconsistent lore. It's like they said with gimbals. Gimbals were supposed to target through eye tracking, which means basically either you'd select your target, or which is most likely what would happen, and the guns would track. Well, apparently, if you use a joystick, use a gamepad, or use mouse relative mode, you're blind. So. So there's these things in the lore that they describe in the game, or even questions that they answer, and then they just turn around and just say, they just flip you the bird and say, reasons.
We didn't mean that. We meant this.
Right. Oh, man. Anyway, guys, so leave your comments down below about this thing. Do you like the ideas of flying bikes? Do you get our point behind it, even if you do like it? Yeah. Do you think that it's a stupid idea? You just kind of want your dedicated ground vehicles back. You know, I said I want dedicated ground vehicles to be dedicated ground vehicles. That's part of the joy of everything. That's part of the joy of the games, like getting out there and doing doing different things, and not like just your Swiss Army vehicle that can do it all. I just
Pretty soon we'll just have an EVA suit that can do everything, and then we'll just get anti-capital ship guns. Oh wait, we already have those, right? Well, maybe not anti-capital ship guns. So, but we'll get anti-capital ship guns. We already have anti-fighter guns with the railgun. I think there's a missile launcher coming out. So all we'll need eventually is the Titan suit. We'll mod it up.
And third-person view combat. We'll just call it. We'll call it Star Citizen 0.
Yeah, we'll get some third-person combat that everybody loves and wants. We can also have first-person, but there'll be no difference except for a wider field of view on the third person. It'll be the Grest. It will be the best game ever.
Indeed. All right, guys. Well, that's everything for this week's BlastCast, and yeah. Remember, if you to run faster, stay low.
The lower the better.
The lower the better. Thanks for listening.
Sorry, it's just so dumb.
It is.
Bye-bye.
It's so dumb. Bye.